Welcome to Leveraging Leadership, where we unpack the art of business leadership. I'm your host, Emily Sander, Chief of Staff turned Executive Leadership Coach. In this series, we dive into the role of Chief of Staff, exploring how it can be a game changer and pivotal player on your leadership team. You'll get a backstage pass and learn about the different aspects of the role and what it takes to excel in it. We'll hear from some incredible guests who have firsthand experience serving as Chief of Staff or collaborating with one on their team. And don't forget, the Chief of Staff isn't just a title or person, it represents a leadership philosophy. Leveraging Leadership is all about finding your points of greatest influence and leveraging them to better serve those around you. Deborah, welcome to Leveraging Leadership. How's your week been going?
It's been great. It's been great. Really looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to have you. So you helped people with resumes as a side hustle a long time ago, and now you're a member of Forbes Business Council.
Yeah, the Forbes Business Council. Yeah.
Okay. And then, of course, you're the CEO and founder of DNS Career Management.
Yeah, DNS Executive Career Management. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a wild ride the last 7 or 8 years.
That's quite a journey. And today you help chiefs of staff with their job search strategy and all the different components that go into that. And as we know, that's a pretty unique role, and especially when you're trying to present yourself as a chief of staff, and especially if you haven't been one before. So we will certainly get into all of that because I know our listeners want to hear all the good stuff there. But just to rewind us really quick, what made you want to help people with their resumes? Because I know every time I've had to update my resume, I'm like, okay, you need to make it good and you need to spend the time to do it, but it wasn't my most favorite thing. So what made you want to do that?
That's so funny. For the longest time, I said, my job exists because people typically literally hate to write their resumes, and I have dreams about formatting documents and editing bullets. So, and I wish that was a joke. I may need a hobby outside of my work, but that's actually how it started. I have always really had this interest in careers and helping people with their job searches and things like this. And I was in what I thought was my dream job. Something I'd really, really tried hard to get was I was leading career services for a small university. And I thought that was going to be my forever job. But what I realized in that process is that what I really loved was helping our, returning alumni and things like that. We worked with a lot of like mid-career and beyond people prepare for their job search, give them the confidence they needed to go for stretch roles, help them with their resume to put their best foot forward to be qualified for roles they didn't think they could get. And so I actually kept doing it on the side even after I left that job. And I started doing it really more as a passion project. And it snowballed and took over my life. And then we launched it full time about 7 years ago. And so far we've grown. And so today, kind of fast forwarding, my firm works with VP to board level leaders to prepare for and navigate their high level searches, because we really found in working with everybody that there's a huge need in the market for the executive level job search expertise, because the way you go to market as a VP or C level or chief of staff is different than anybody else in the market. And so to know exactly how to present that is a different animal. So we've really decided to niche down.
Great. Thanks for that background. And so jumping into chief of staff, it is a unique role because there's people ask me all the time, Emily, what career track should I take? What, degree do I need? What job? I'm like, it's really a diverse set of experiences that could lead you to be chief of staff. But if you've never been a chief of staff and you're trying to break into that role, you've got to be able to pull out relevant experience and present that in all the different ways you have to present that with resume and LinkedIn and interview conversations. So just at a high level, can you give us a snapshot of what's different or what a theme should be for a chief of staff job search?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, the first thing that helps, and this is really for anybody in any role, but certainly for chief of staff, is thinking about first what kinds of organizations you're uniquely equipped to serve. Because the challenges that are going on in companies change depending on the size and the industry and things like that. And so getting really clear about your unique area that you want to focus on helps you think through all the other things that go in the resume and LinkedIn and your interview and all of that. So having an idea of that, right? And then really thinking about, if you hadn't been a chief of staff before, it's really, you're not being brought in to be the doer, right? You're being brought in to work across all of the functions, have an idea of what's going on in all of the functions, and really help drive special projects through, that maybe from the CEO, especially if it's a smaller company, or, really large companies may have chief of staff for several C-level positions, but we'll say CEO for now. So you need to think about how you can influence and manage in a way that's more in a matrixed environment and not necessarily leading people and doing the thing.
Okay, so those are great points. So we'll take the first part of that first. So when you're trying to help someone find what industry they're, what unique skills they bring to a certain industry or what job they would fit best, if someone's listening to that going, I don't know, like I've done a hodgepodge of things and I'm not really qualified for anything, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say focus on the areas that give you energy then, and focus on the areas you want to be involved in. So maybe you've done a lot of different things in your past, and most of our clients have. They've had really great careers where they've done a lot of different things, and that means they can do a lot of different things. But if you try to list everything in a resume, you're going to try to be everything to everybody, and that's not really going to land. And so you want to pick a lane, at least in, maybe it's picking the size of company. I don't know very many people that do their best work in a publicly traded company as they do in like early stage startups, right? Those are two totally different animals. And so trying to get clear on at least the big things, what size of a company, maybe it's a few industries and that's okay, but maybe they all have, something in common. Like say, I was just actually earlier today talking to a CMO for a publicly traded wine company. And, her issue is that her challenge in their industry is that it's heavily regulated. So maybe it's, industries that are heavily regulated or industries that are all direct to consumer, things like that.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, so how do you, it's funny because chief of staff, there's no like, here's my chief of staff experience. Like you said, it could differ from industry to industry or company to company or even phase of company or stage of company that it's in. So what types of things would you bring forward? Like for instance, I was talking to someone about their job search, and I was like, you need to bring the initiatives where you worked with different groups. So when you worked with operations and finance and, product sales and all those things, you need to bring the initiatives that you work with all those groups forward and put them front and center on your resume. So are there things like that that people should be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. As a chief of staff, you need to be thinking about showing your breadth of experience instead of depth of experience, right? They're not hiring you to be an expert in a function. They're hiring you to have an understanding of the entire business and how everyone works together and how the different functions and groups need to partner to get big goals over the finish line, right? And so, yeah, that's where you want to be really clear in your resume and in your interview process and things like that about how you partner with leadership and other people on the teams of every different department that may touch business. That way, they know that you can hop in and have at least a base level understanding of what's important to operations and what's important to finance and what's important to marketing and sales, and so that you can bridge the gaps between each other. You can be the liaison and open communication between each group to kind of pull cross-functional teams together on big initiatives to drive the ball.
Yeah, and I think, I often talk to EAs, so executive assistants who are trying to make that leap to chief of staff. And it's exactly what you just said, which is going from an operational doer or tactically doing things, boom, 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 boom. And they're very, very good at that, to more of a
Right.
strategic thinker and seeing the big picture. And that could be a interesting and sometimes challenging jump. And so let's take that example. If you are an EA, or some level like an EA, and you're trying to make that jump and demonstrate you do have the strategic level thinking or big picture thinking, how do you recommend presenting that or trying to convey that?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of ways. I think if you're in a role currently and you want to make that leap from EA to a chief of staff and maybe trying to make the case that you could be more for the leader, I think it's around asking for stretch assignments, asking to lead the strategy for something, or finding opportunities where you're really letting them know you're ready for more, so that you can take on bigger projects. Because I think sometimes when we get stuck in a role and they know us as one thing, it's sometimes like being too good at one thing and you don't get the a chance to do the next thing. So I think one of those is really being clear about where you'd like to head, the value that you can add, and then finding opportunities to get your hands in more things. If you're an EA and you're looking for a new role, and hoping to jump up to that chief of staff role, I think that's around showing the um, the value of your work in your past roles. So, demonstrating you may have been, executive assistant, but mentioning the projects you've worked on that touched all the areas of the business, really demonstrating that you've, helped manage budgets of X number of dollars or, worked across teams of X number of people. That's where quantifying your work and showing the value of your work will get really, really important to show that, anything that you've led or spearheaded will help you make that connection. And then know that this is a whole separate conversation we could have, but knowing that if you've been an EA and you're looking for that chief of staff role, your job search process is going to be heavily based on networking, because if you just are applying online, you'll never, like, your title doesn't match up, right? But if you're networking, the key thing about a chief of staff in any company is it's a really personal choice for the leader to pick their chief of staff. It's, just like a personal choice to pick an executive assistant, only now they're, the level of work they're doing is much higher, the stakes are higher, the compensation is higher, and so it's even like it's kind of like the personal choice on steroids, right?
Yeah, for sure. I love that. So there's lots of things to hit on there. So first of all, you mentioned like trying to translate or trying to quantify certain things, and that really sparked my brain because in chief of staff role, there is that personal relationship with your principal, and it's almost like I always joke like part of my job as chief of staff was keeping the CEO sane.
Mhm.
No way is there like a direct kind of connection to that from a previous experience that I had, but it's a huge part of the job, and emotional
Right.
intelligence and being able to work with a whole bunch of different people, and have that kind of, I can see where the group is headed. I need to swing them this way. Or, hey, the group is really fired up and they need to calm down. Or, hey, the group doesn't have a sense of urgency. I need to light a fire under them. So, how do you, chief of staff, if they're trying to explain, I have this X factor, I have this intangible piece, anyone can say, like, I have a high EQ, but how do you actually show people that you have that?
That's such a great question. Yeah, I'm a great communicator.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's really around demonstrating in the resume as much as possible, and then having accomplishment stories for the interview around times that you led through conflict or challenge, or anytime they were having an issue with something and you were able to, through teamwork and collaboration and communication, get everyone on the same page and then get to the end goal. And so I think anytime you can try to demonstrate that is a lot more powerful than just saying I have a high EQ.
Right. I love that. Okay. So have some accomplishment stories, which we will get to in a moment. I want to touch on the other piece you said, which is networking. So I think for any business person, and certainly for a job seeker, and certainly for an EA type person who might not have the title, networking can be a really good resource and activity for you to spend your time in. Can you just touch on a few guidelines for people to have for networking? Where should they be putting their efforts and be directing their networking?
Can be so hard, right? And especially if we're not necessarily extroverted, or if we've been in the same company or industry for a really long time, and so you have a small network or maybe an insulated network, that can be, it can be nebulous, right? So I think it goes back to being clear on the types of organizations or leaders you want to serve, and then mapping out, don't just go to like every networking event or, things going on in your town or whatever, and then feeling like you have to be there and have small talk with strangers, or you're passing out business cards. But it's really around, what are the rooms, digitally or physically, that the people that would hire you are in? Where are they? What are they doing? What are they, are they going to specific conferences, or are they going to specific webinars? Are they in different professional organizations? Like, what does that look like? Where are they? And then go to where they are, right? So if it's webinars, what I like to do is, if there's a webinar, and this can be a really low cost way to network, especially for introverts that don't really want to walk into a room full of strangers, is to go to a webinar and then look at the attendees and then send a connection request to all of the attendees in LinkedIn saying, hey, I saw you were on the blah 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 webinar. I am too. I'd love to connect. And that's a really natural way to reach out to someone that isn't so like salesy, right? It's not like, hey,
Yes.
I don't know you and I'm just sending a connection request, but it's something very specific. And then I like to, if it's someone that would make sense for you at the kind of company you're looking for, then I like to send a follow-up message after they connect and say, I'd love to learn more about your work at XYZ. Would you be open to virtual coffee? You're not asking anything of them except for a little bit of time. Keep them short, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, not real long. And you'll be surprised at how many people take you up on that.
Hi, Emily here. I just wanted to take 10 seconds to highlight the power of one-on-one coaching at nextlevel.coach. Get the tools for success and leave each session feeling refreshed and refocused. I love that strategy because you already have something in common. If you've both gone to that same webinar, you have a similar interest. And most people want to help. They like to be helpful. And so if you just ask them for like a low, you're not asking for half a day, just like jump on a call for 15 minutes, that's relatively easy. And a lot of people would be willing to do that. So I love that strategy. That's a great one.
Thanks.
So you touched on LinkedIn. So how does someone develop their LinkedIn presence to best showcase what they're trying to go after? So assuming that they have really done the work to be clear about what types of roles they want and what's important to them and where their energy is and all of that, how do they then have their LinkedIn profile reflect that?
I would start with, if you're not currently working or you're not worried about raising red flags with your current company, it starts with putting right in your headline, chief of staff, these are the industries, this is the type of work I do, being really clear up front, because your headline is valuable real estate because it's heavily weighted for keyword searches and it follows you everywhere you go on LinkedIn. So everyone's going to see it when they pull up a list of people. They're going to see it if you comment on stuff. They're going to see it if you send them a connection request. So it's everywhere. The other thing, and I know this is not part of your question, but I do want to say to people who are starting this search, especially if you're doing that jump from EA to chief of staff, is remember, like you need to be a leader, and so your LinkedIn photo needs to look like you would walk into an interview, because that's your first opportunity
Yes.
to make a strong first impression. You don't always get that again, so make sure you spend some time and energy and thought into putting a really strong headshot together for LinkedIn. And then, making sure that you're adding all of the information that someone would want. So I think sometimes a lot of people are concerned about putting too much information on LinkedIn, or they don't want it to match their resume, or, there's a lot of thought back and forth about what to put in. But I always say, if you're a job seeker, you want to put in all the information you would put in your resume into LinkedIn, because LinkedIn may be your only opportunity and you want someone to get enough information that they want to interview you. So, um, sometimes people want it to be different so it doesn't seem like it's repetitive, but really people may only see your LinkedIn profile. So add a summary section that kind of weaves together all of your diverse experience. That way you can show that breadth of experience. You can show how you work with different organizations. You're really clear about the types of organizations you want to work with. And so that way you can pull the whole story together. And then in your experience sections, kind of add color commentary and your value and your accomplishments there too, those accomplishment stories. So fully flesh it out. Don't try to be I guess brief with it, assuming someone's going to ask for your resume.
Yeah, because they might not read both, and people are going through dozens, if not hundreds, of resumes or candidate information. And one of the things I tell people is your resume does not need to cover your life story, nor should it. It's like the teaser trailer to a movie. So the resume's job is to get you to the interview, and then in the interview, then you can expand on your experience and background. But yeah, I've been through resumes where I'm scrolling, I'm on page 4, page 5, I'm done, I'm out. So I think
No one's going to read that much. Yeah, I always tell people, like, the only people who are ever going to read your resume word for word are probably your resume writer and your mom, and no one else cares. And
yeah.
so you have to keep it very brief, very to the point, and make it easily, have some white space in there so it's easily scannable, because that's all people are going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, a key point, because everyone is like, every single word counts because it's like my story and it counts. But in reality, you have to stand out to that recruiter or hiring manager in a positive way. Like, oh, that was easy. Like I got the information I need and it was physically easy for me to scan that page. Let me talk to
Right.
this person more. So I think that's a key point just for everyone. So let's get into the kind of interview prep and accomplishment story. I've never heard it told like that, but that's a great term. And I've heard that if you have a job description, you can go through and pull out themes of what they are looking for. So maybe like the top 3 or 5 themes that they're looking for, and then have a story to go with that. So just in case that comes up, you have a story or an example ready to go. Is an accomplishment story kind of like that, or is it different?
It'll be kind of like that. It's hard with the chief of staff job description because it's like you touch everything, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like picking the top themes that are most important for a chief of staff or what you think might be most important to that company is helpful. And yeah, it's around, in the resume, you can't put all of this content, right? Because like we said, we don't want to include all of the information in the world, but in an interview, this is where you have the opportunity to show your examples of your EQ and your communication, your ability to work with groups. And so that's where you want to have the idea of the what the challenge was, what was going on at the company, what you were tasked to do, or what you recognized you could do, how you went about it, and what you did to make that happen, and then the result. In your resume, it's a little bit different. You need to kind of start with result and then have a little bit of how you got there, but you can't go into all the detail of what was going on. So this is your opportunity to give more nuance to it and more context.
So is an example like just the classic, like, tell me about a time when you did X, Y, and Z. And you're like, okay, so here I have in my back pocket 3 stories ready to go, and I'll pick the best one. Is that the type of thing you would suggest?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. So thinking about your highest level accomplishments in your career, maybe a time when you were able to, maybe you'd worked with a company that went through, say, a merger and you worked with the CEO, maybe even as the EA, and you know, did all of the communications around, I'm just trying to think of an example off the top of my head, but all the communications for the team around what was happening and getting everyone on the
Yes.
same page and keeping up morale and making sure that you didn't lose anybody through the process and all of that, and so it's around explaining what was going on, the big challenge the company was going through, or what they were trying to do, or what their goal was, or whatever, and the areas where you were able to connect the dots, bring everyone together, and then show that delivered value on the other end, whether that was meeting the goal or, saving money or, keeping the team intact or whatever it might be.
And then if you were a current chief of staff and you were just positioning yourself for another chief of staff role, is it the similar process? So, maybe if your current employer isn't aware of your job search or your inclination toward getting a new job, are there things you do differently? But it's, you can still have your current role on LinkedIn and you still present yourself that way.
I think so. And then, yeah, I mean, with your current role on LinkedIn, it makes it a little easier to show up in searches and add chief of staff and things like that because you're currently one. I think, the thing that you can add to the interviews and the accomplishment stories is real examples of how you partnered with the other division or department leaders to help them with their goals too, right? So it's not going to be just about how you helped the principal, but how you partnered and collaborated with all of the other areas to drive business forward, whatever that may be, whatever the issue was. But I think showing that teamwork and collaboration and communication is really important for chiefs of staff that are currently in that role.
Yes. Okay. There's so many questions hitting my head. I have to pick just one. But if you were prepping someone, like let's take an aspiring chief of staff. So they've never been a chief of staff. Maybe they've been an EA. Maybe they've been a project manager, but they want to break into that chief of staff level. How do you help people? Do you take them through like do you do their resume, LinkedIn, and interview prep? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what we typically do with our candidates that we work with is we start with that strategy around like what does that ideal next role look like, getting clear on the focus. So we do that with our clients typically, unless they have a really clear idea already. And then yeah, we do when we do resumes, which is kind of the foundations for our candidates' resumes and LinkedIn profile. And that's usually where we start the strategy, resume, LinkedIn profile. But when we do that, we start with a deep dive interview because we want to know, we want to dig into all of those accomplishment stories, right? We can write them for you and we can communicate them if we
Oh,
know what
okay.
they are. And so we dig into, we send our clients a list of questions to think about ahead of time, not something they have to fill out, but something to kind of get their mind working on what we're going to ask. And then we will go in and get those contexts. So what we want to know is, you know, um, tell us about the company, their client size, industry, things like that. What were you hired to do? What fell under your purview, and then let's talk about your accomplishments, and then we'll dig into that stuff, and ask follow-up questions, and kind of, I joke with our clients, like annoy you into submission to get the information that we need. But sometimes it's really uncomfortable to say, like, look at how amazing I am. Let me tell you about how great I am.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
especially as women, there's an extra layer of weirdness in there. And so we do that through an interview, and then we go away and we'll rewrite a resume from scratch, kind of hyper focused to what's next, hyper focused on where they're headed and not necessarily all the things they've ever done.
Yes.
We're only including the parts that are advancing the story for the role that they want and not necessarily, there's a lot of things we've probably done in our past, but doesn't mean we want to do them all again. And I think sometimes people get um, worked up in the details about their resume, thinking like, oh, I did this, so it has to be included. It does not. So anyway, we do that. And then we do LinkedIn. And when, whether you're working with us or working on your own, you want to think about LinkedIn in three lenses: the content to position you for the roles you're looking for. So when it comes to like saying chief of staff, things like that, the optimization to make sure you're showing up in all potential searches. So any keyword, keyword skills, visibility, privacy, all of that stuff, the privacy settings, all of that stuff. And then the visual aspect. So your headshot, your background image, links, images, a featured section, all of that stuff.
Gotcha. And so you walk your clients through that. And then if they are interviewing, do you help them kind of prep for different interviews, or hey, should I apply to this one, or kind of walk them through that stage as well?
Yeah, so we provide ongoing support throughout the life of the job search. And so that can include a job search strategy. How do you get, how are you going to get in front of the roles? How are you going to identify roles? How are you going to, what does your networking strategy look like? What are you physically sending to these people? We can write stuff. So we can be as hands-on or as hands-off as somebody needs, kind of like a job search buddy, right? Like you're getting a team of people to
Yes.
walk you through every step of the process. And then interview prep. If you're preparing, interview skills in general, maybe you have something difficult to message around, or you've not had that chief of staff role, so you've got to get clear on that content, or or you've got a really big opportunity and we're going to help you with that specific interview, right? And we're going to dig into, like you said, the job description and all of the things and really put a full court press of that job. And then, we can go through that as many rounds as it takes, depending on, your job search. And then we also provide compensation negotiation consulting. So, how are you maximizing your offer? How are you making sure you don't leave money on the table? How are you making sure that you're not capping your offer too soon in the process by giving a salary range? All of that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. That's fantastic. And I think I like how you spend time up front and invest, the deep dive and the questions to get clear on what you're doing, because all of the other activities point toward that thing. So I think that's a great way to go. One quick question that came up is, if someone is advocating for a chief of staff role at their current company and there's never been that role, so I've had clients like that, previous guests have been in that situation, and they've advocated for the role and done like a whole pitch deck. Would you help someone in a situation like that where, hey, if I wanted to create a role and then apply for it, or say I want to be in that role, would you help with that scenario?
Yeah, that has definitely happened. We do work with people who are going through a process internally, either for a known promotion or an opportunity, or they want to pitch that next thing. And so it comes with, the that whole deep dive interview can still be helpful in that process because we can pull
Yeah.
out their accomplishments and show like, here's what I've delivered in this role. Can you imagine what it would be if I was able to grow my influence and do it on a bigger scale, right? And try to map their expertise with how they can drive the business results forward.
Yes, I think getting clear on what you want, just in general, like in life, even if you're happy with your job now, but what does that career trajectory look like overall, and clarity around that can help a job searcher, because as opportunities present themselves, you now have a filter or a criteria at which to kind of bounce them off against. And then if it's, oh, this is like 90% of what I'm looking for, I should definitely look into this one. Or like, that one sounds like cool and neat on this part, but it doesn't really hit all the criteria that I said was important to me. So having that up front so you don't get swung around in the moment, I think is really helpful. And then I think the accomplishment stories where, if you ask someone, where do you need to improve? Well, they can give you a laundry list. It's like, what do you do well and what do you excel at and what are your accomplishments? Is like crickets and tumbleweeds and all those different
It's
things.
really
I think
uncomfortable.
I think having a person or a team or a job search buddy help you pull those out and present them objectively, but still like, hey, I did this, and so yes, I can say that I achieved this without exaggerating. I think that's a huge value add as well.
Yes, you're so right. We tell our clients too, we're going to push them outside of their comfort zone. We don't want to lie and we don't want to overstate, certainly.
Sure.
But we also want to make sure they're not leaving any of their value on the table, or trying to pull it back a little bit because they don't want to seem braggy. People do that when they're writing their own stuff, but if we take if we can dig out the information and then rewrite it objectively, then we take all the emotion out of it. And it makes it a lot easier to put something together on paper that is like, okay, are these facts? If they're not facts, we certainly need to change them. But if they are facts, then you need to get comfortable owning them.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last question for you. Bonus question. Cover letter or no cover letter?
Oh, the cover letters. Okay. So I do have an answer for this. Um, and here's what I say. And it depends on the level of the employee too, right? So it kind of depends. But here's our approach, even at our executive level clients for cover letters. In our, like, say, foundations package, which is the resume and LinkedIn profile, everyone gets a cover letter whether they want one or not. And the reason is because um most companies don't read the cover letter. And so you don't want to spend a ton of time, reinventing the wheel and agonizing over every word in the cover letter because they're either not going to read it or they'll just skim it and it's not going to matter. Some companies care a lot.
Mhm.
So you want to include one to show that you did it and you did the effort, but you don't want to like spend a ton of time and effort agonizing over it because it's typically not going to get read. So we have one because it's good to have one, but don't feel like you need to write a novel every time. And so we do a template that's very easy um to customize for each opportunity because you don't need one if you're if you're networking into jobs, but if you're applying to something, it's helpful. So it kind of goes back and forth. But the people that care a bunch, and so it is helpful to have.
I like that answer because so Alex Papadopoulos, who was our COO, and I would go back and forth on this topic a whole bunch. He was in favor of a cover letter. He was like, everyone should have one. I read it word for word. I'm looking at that very closely. I am more in the latter camp of what you just described, where I scan it. And if things stand out like, oh, it's clearly a boilerplate cover letter because you forgot to change the name of the company. And if you forgot to change my name, that's a red flag. Also, if you
Helpful.
misspell something or if it's just this is not professionally done. But I will say, and those are the majority. I mean, the majority are like kind of boilerplate cover letters, but at least it proves you can like put a coherent sentence together. Where I go, oh my gosh, this is a standout candidate, is if they say something specific to me or the role or the company, and it's clear it has to be for this specific one. I'm like, okay, you've at least taken the time to do that, and it might mean you've actually done some research and you're very invested in this role. It's not just kind of check the box. So that's my
Right.
experience with cover letters.
I love that. And you're absolutely right. Like in our templates that we put together for our candidates, it does include like a section of, okay, you have to do some research to
Yes.
put something in here that is tailored to the company, right? Because otherwise it's not going to mean anything. But we also, I've worked at a place before, as part of the hiring committee for a role that the hiring manager actually had mission fit in the cover letter as part of their matrix for who they interviewed. And
Oh,
so it was like it was part of the ability to match the cover letter to the job and the organization was part of the criteria to get interviewed at that organization. So the
I
people that
love
care
that.
care a lot.
Wow, mission fit. I love that. Okay. Yeah, I could go on and on, but that's great stuff. So, Deborah, thank you for sharing this really helpful information. And this is one of my favorite topics, like recruiting and how you position yourself. So I could go on and on. But if people want to know about you, more about you or the services you and your company provide, where should they go?
Yeah, two places. So I provide a ton of content on LinkedIn around job search strategy, resume tips, things like that. So find me on LinkedIn, follow me there. My profile is Deborah Boggs, DebraBoggs on LinkedIn. And then, if you want to learn more about our work and our services and our team, you can visit our website at dscareermanagement.com. And this was so much fun. I could definitely talk about this all day too.
Yeah, we might bring it back for round two, but we will be sure to have all those links in the show notes so people can find it easily. And Deborah, thank you once again. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Emily.
If you'd like some more information on the topic discussed in this episode, head over to nextlevel.coach and click on the resources page for some helpful free downloads.